There's a peculiar moment that always happens at the same time. 3 in the morning. The mind awakens on its own without an alarm for no apparent reason. And then they start coming. Not isolated thoughts, but entire torrents of information. The work that needs to be delivered. The unresolved conversation. The disturbing news you read before going to sleep. The decision you need to make. The uncertain future. The past that still hurts. In a few seconds, your head turns into a radio station with all frequencies tuned in at the same time. A deafening symphony of data, memories, concerns, and connections. The more you try to organize this chaos, the more it multiplies. Every solution you think of generates 3 new problems. Every answer you find reveals 5 new questions. There, in the darkness of your room, something becomes frighteningly clear. Maybe the problem isn't a lack of knowledge. Maybe it's exactly the opposite. This is the silent pain of an entire generation. People who know too much to be naive, but not enough to be wise. Minds trained to absorb infinite information, but which have lost the most basic ability of all, to simply exist without thinking about their own existence. We carry entire libraries in our heads. We know statistics about happiness, but we can't feel it. We understand the mechanics of love, but we freeze up on a first date. We know exactly how the world should work, but we can't even decide what to have for breakfast. Nearly 150 years ago, a German philosopher predicted this trap with disturbing accuracy. He saw that knowledge, this thing we have always been promised, would be the key to liberation, could become the most subtle of prisons. And he left a warning that echoes to this day. Perhaps wisdom lies in knowing when to stop knowing. What happens when we discover that thinking too much can be a way of not living? What if what we consider our greatest virtue, the ability to reflect on everything, is exactly what prevents us from simply being? Imagine a person who has absorbed the entire history of humanity. Every war, every injustice, every mistake repeated century after century. They know all the patterns, all the traps, all the tragic endings that repeat themselves with mathematical precision. When this person wakes up in the morning, what makes them get out of bed? Nietzsche called this creature super-historical, not as a compliment, but as a diagnosis of a terminal condition of the soul. It is someone who knows so much about everything that they have lost the ability to be surprised, to hope, to believe that any action can make a real difference. It may seem like philosophical hyperbole, but look around you. How many people do you know who know exactly why relationships fail, but can't bring themselves to commit to one? Who understand perfectly the mechanisms of political manipulation, but feel completely powerless to change them? Who have mastered theories of professional fulfillment, but remain stuck in jobs they hate? Knowledge has become a kind of slow poison. Every new piece of information we absorb is like another layer of glass between us and life. We see everything with crystal clarity, but we can no longer touch anything directly. There is a scene that plays out thousands of times a day. Someone has to make a simple decision. What movie to watch, what to wear, where to go for dinner. But instead of simply choosing, the mind races. The analysis, comparisons, and projections of the future begin. If I choose this movie, I'll waste time that I could use for something productive. But if I choose something educational, I'll feel obligated to pay attention. What if I don't like it? What if it's a waste of time after all? In 10 minutes, a 30-second decision turns into a mental dissertation on the meaning of life, the nature of time, and the weight of choices. In the end, the person chooses anything, exhausted by the process, or simply gives up and starts browsing their cell phone, which is, ironically, a way of choosing not to choose. This is not intelligence. It is paralysis disguised as analysis. There is something deeply disturbing about this. We have developed increasingly sophisticated mental tools, but we have become incapable of using the most basic one of all, intuition. We know how to analyze risks, compare options, and predict consequences, but we have lost that primitive ability to simply know what we want. A 5-year-old chooses ice cream without hesitation. A 30-year-old spends 15 minutes on the menu, considering calories, impact on the budget, whether the choice reflects their personality, whether others will judge them. In the end, they order anything and are dissatisfied, not with the ice cream, but with the whole process. The difference is not just simplicity. It's that children still have direct access to their desires. Adults have to go through layers and layers of analysis to get to them, if they ever do. Nietzsche realized that there is a fundamental difference between knowing about life and living. The former can be infinite. There is always more to learn, more connections to make, more perspectives to consider. The second happens only in the present, in a very small and precise space where knowledge can actually get in the way. Think of an experienced musician. They may have a deep knowledge of music theory, music history, advanced techniques, cultural influences. But when they step on stage, all that information needs to disappear. There needs to be a moment where he stops thinking about the music and simply becomes the music. If he analyzes every note as he plays, the result will be technical but soulless. Or watch an athlete at the decisive moment. All the years of training, strategy, and mental preparation condense into a moment of pure action. If he stops to consciously think about each movement, he has already lost. Excellence happens when knowledge dissolves into instinct. Life requires the same kind of creative forgetfulness. There are moments when all the accumulated information needs to be temporarily suspended so that something genuine can emerge. But we have lost that ability. We are always connected, always processing, always making connections. We live in an age where even feelings need to be analyzed before they can be felt. Am I really sad or just tired? Is this anger justified or is it projection? Do I love this person or have I just gotten used to them? As if feelings were theorems that need to be proven before they have a right to exist. The result is a generation of people who know everything about how to be happy but have forgotten how to simply be well. They know 1,000 definitions of love but cannot allow themselves to love without analyzing every feeling. They have studied all the paths to success but lost themselves along the way. Historical awareness, this ability to carry the weight of all human knowledge, should liberate us. In theory. In practice, it has created a new form of slavery. The inability to live without thinking about the act of living. And the more we know about this trap, the more trapped we become. Because now we not only carry the weight of all human knowledge, but we also carry the awareness that this weight exists. It is an endless spiral. Knowledge about knowledge about knowledge. But Nietzsche did not stop at the diagnosis. He saw something that few noticed. There is a wisdom that precedes knowledge, more primitive and perhaps more true. A form of intelligence that needs no words, analysis, or justification. A wisdom that works not despite ignorance, but through it. A cat has never had an existential crisis. It has never lain awake at 3 in the morning wondering if it was wasting its life, if it should have made different choices, if it was being authentic enough. When a cat wants to sleep, it sleeps. When it wants to eat, it eats. When it wants affection, it comes closer. When it doesn't, it moves away. This is not simplicity. It is a form of intelligence that we have completely lost. Nietzsche observed that animals have something that we, in our evolution, have abandoned. The ability to live entirely in the present. Not because they are limited, but because they have mastered something we consider impossible. The art of existing without questioning their own existence. Watch a dog running after a ball. In that moment, there is no past or future. There is no analysis of the usefulness of the activity. No comparison with other forms of entertainment. No concern about what others will think. There is only the ball, the chase, the pure and unquestionable joy of being alive. When was the last time you felt that? Not conditional joy. I'm happy because I achieved that. But joy without justification, without reason, without purpose beyond itself. The answer is disturbing, probably in childhood. Before we learned that every feeling needs to be analyzed, every moment needs to be productive, every experience needs to be optimized. There is a silent tragedy unfolding. The more we evolve intellectually, the further we move away from this basic ability to simply be. We have created a culture where living in the moment has become a mindfulness technique, where spontaneity needs to be scheduled, where even relaxation has become a performance. Nietzsche called animals non-historical creatures, not as an insult but as a recognition. They do not carry the weight of all previous generations on their shoulders. A zebra does not freeze thinking about all the predators that have ever existed. A bird does not postpone flight because it has read statistics about plane crashes. But we do. We carry the weight of every mistake humanity has ever made, every injustice we have ever witnessed, every disappointment we have ever experienced. We turn this into wisdom, but perhaps it is just a sophisticated form of collective neurosis. There is a scene that repeats itself. Someone is at a party, surrounded by people, good music, a pleasant atmosphere. But instead of simply enjoying themselves, their mind races. Do I look interesting? Is that person having more fun than me? Should I be at home studying? Am I wasting my time? Why can't I relax like everyone else? In the end, they spend the entire party observing their own experience instead of living it. It's like watching a movie through the reflection on a turned-off television. Technically, you can still see it, but it loses all its color, all its vibrancy, all its immediacy. If you pause this video now and look around, what do you see? Not with the eyes of someone who analyzes, categorizes, judges, but with the eyes of someone who simply receives what is there. It's harder than it looks, isn't it? Because we've lost touch with this more primitive, more direct form of perception. Animals don't need to learn to live in the present. We need to unlearn how to live in the past and the future simultaneously. We need to unlearn how to turn every moment into a dissertation about the moment itself. But how? How can we recover a capacity that the very evolution of consciousness seems to have made impossible? How can we regain access to this intelligence that predates thought, this wisdom that does not need words to exist? The answer does not lie in abandoning knowledge. That would be as artificial as forcing constant analysis. It lies in developing the ability to switch between the two states, knowing when to think and knowing when to stop thinking. Knowing when consciousness is useful and when it is an obstacle. Think of a child playing hide and seek. When they are hiding, there is nothing in the universe but that moment. Their heart beats fast, their muscles tense, all their attention is focused on the sounds approaching. It's fear, it's excitement, it's absolute presence. There is no mental space for anything else. This state is not ignorance. It is a higher form of consciousness. Consciousness without self-awareness, awareness without analysis, presence without performance. The problem with modernity is not that we think too much. It's that we've forgotten how to stop. We've developed incredible mental muscles, but we've lost the ability to relax them. It's like living with every muscle in your body contracted all the time. Technically, it still works, but at what cost? Animals teach us that there is a form of intelligence that works through trust, not analysis. Trust in instincts, in impulses, in the wisdom of the body. They don't need to understand why they want something in order to want it. They don't need to justify why they feel something in order to feel it. We, on the other hand, have created a culture where every desire must be explained. Every feeling must be validated by external reasons. Every action must be defended before an internal court that never stops judging. Perhaps true evolution is not about developing ever greater analytical abilities, but about regaining the ability to trust the wisdom that exists before thought. A wisdom that knows without needing to know that it knows. In 1870, Nietzsche wrote about the dangers of information overload. There was no internet, no social media, no constant notifications, no instant access to every book ever written. There were only books, newspapers, and conversations. Even so, he could already see the poison spreading. What would he say today when we carry access to more information in our pockets than any previous civilization had in its entire history? When in 5 minutes we can learn about a tragedy on the other side of the world, a revolutionary scientific discovery, the opinion of millions of people on any subject, and still have time to watch dozens of cat videos. The human mind was not designed to process the pain of all humanity simultaneously. It was not made to carry the weight of all the injustices in the world, all possible concerns, all the catastrophic futures that may or may not happen. But that is exactly what we do, every day, several times a day. There is a peculiar moment that defines our era. You are standing in line, waiting, and instinctively reach for your cell phone. In 2 minutes, you absorb information about war, climate change, economic crisis, a political scandal, a discovery about longevity, a debate about education, and 3 posts about people who seem infinitely more fulfilled than you. When your turn finally comes, you are mentally exhausted. Not because you have made any physical effort, but because your mind has tried to process problems it cannot solve, realities it cannot control, information it cannot use. This is not intellectual curiosity. It is a modern form of self-flagellation. Nietzsche predicted that information would become a drug. The more we consume, the more we need to consume. The more we know about the world's problems, the more inadequate we feel for not being able to solve them. The more we compare our messy inner lives with the organized outer lives we see on our screens, the more lost we become. The result is existential paralysis disguised as information. We know so much about everything that we no longer know what to do with anything. We know statistics about happiness, but we can't feel a moment of simple contentment. We understand the mechanisms of depression, anxiety, and burnout, but we continue to feed the very patterns that lead us to these states. It's like knowing the recipe for poison perfectly and continuing to drink it, thinking that knowledge about the poison will neutralize its effects. There is something deeply disturbing about the way we consume tragedy. We turn on the news and passively absorb the suffering of thousands of people. Not to help. In most cases, there is nothing practical we can do. Not to better understand the world, the news rarely offers real context. We consume other people's pain because it has become a habit, a way to feel informed, aware, responsible. But what really happens is that our natural capacity for empathy becomes overwhelmed. Like a muscle that works beyond its limit, it doesn't get stronger. It becomes numb. We develop a defensive insensitivity, or the opposite, an exaggerated sensitivity that paralyzes us. Nietzsche spoke of the historical illness, the condition of those who know too much about the past to be able to act in the present. Today we have an amplified version, information sickness. We know too much about everything to connect deeply with anything. Consider the paradox. We have never had access to so much knowledge about happiness, fulfillment, healthy relationships, and life purpose. There have never been so many books, courses, therapies, techniques, and philosophies available, and there have never been so many people feeling lost, anxious, and empty. This is no coincidence. It is cause and effect. Every new piece of information we absorb about how to live well takes us a little further away from our intuitive ability to simply live. Every theory about healthy relationships makes it harder to naturally commit to a relationship. Every productivity method takes us further away from our organic ability to do what needs to be done. We have created a culture where knowing replaces experiencing, where theory replaces practice, where information replaces wisdom. And then we wonder why, knowing so much, we feel so lost. The cruelest part is that the more we realize this trap, the deeper we fall into it. Because now we have to deal not only with information overload, but with information about information overload. Meta-anxiety about anxiety. Meta-analysis about analysis paralysis. It's a never-ending spiral, and Nietzsche saw it coming 150 years ago. He understood that there is a point where more knowledge does not generate more wisdom. It generates paralysis. Where more awareness does not generate more freedom, it generates imprisonment. But he also saw the way out, a way to use knowledge without being used by it, a way to be informed without becoming a hostage to information, a way back home, to that place within us that knows what to do without needing external justification. There comes a moment in every thinker's life when they must choose, continue accumulating knowledge or start living with what they already know. It's a quiet moment, almost imperceptible, but it defines everything that comes after. Nietzsche reached that point and made a revolutionary discovery. Wisdom is not in knowing more, but in knowing when to stop knowing. It is not ignorance. It is a higher form of intelligence that recognizes the limits of one's own knowledge. Imagine that all the information you have ever absorbed is like a huge library inside your head. Every book, every article, every meaningful conversation, every painful insight you have had about yourself and the world. A library so vast that you could spend your entire life just cataloging what is already there. Now imagine that outside that library there is a life going on. People meeting, falling in love, creating, making mistakes, starting over. The sun rising and setting. Unique moments that will never be repeated in exactly the same way. The modern tragedy is that we are trapped inside the library, eternally organizing knowledge while life happens outside. Nietzsche realized that there comes a time to close the books and open the door. But how can we do this without abandoning everything we have learned? How can we use knowledge without being used by it? The answer lies in a word that has completely lost its meaning in our culture. Trust. Not blind trust, but informed trust. The ability to absorb all necessary knowledge and then trust what emerges naturally from that process. It's like learning to ride a bike. At first, you have to consciously think about every movement. Pedaling, balancing, steering, braking. But there comes a point where you just know. Knowledge dissolves into ability. Technique becomes instinct. Life requires the same dissolution. All those years studying relationships must at some point dissolve into the natural ability to love. All knowledge about purpose and fulfillment must transform into the confidence to follow what genuinely moves us, even when we can't explain why. But our culture has created the opposite. People who know everything about how to love but can't love. Who know all the theories about happiness but have forgotten how to simply be happy. Who have mastered decision-making techniques but are paralyzed when choosing what to have for breakfast. Nietzsche called this beyond man. Not in the sense of superiority, but of overcoming. Overcoming the need to analyze every breath before breathing. Overcoming the compulsion to justify every feeling before feeling it. Overcoming the paralysis we mistake for wisdom. There is a scene that happens when someone finally understands this. They are in a situation where they need to make an important decision. Instinctively, the mind fires into analysis mode. But then, for a moment, it manages to pause. It manages to access a deeper form of knowing. Not through thought, but through a certainty that comes from a place before thought. It's not impulsiveness. It's refined intuition. It's the voice that emerges when all the information absorbed crystallizes into silent wisdom. The paradox is that this ability only emerges when we stop trying to force it. It's like sleeping. The more you consciously try to fall asleep, the more awake you become. Sleep comes when you stop trying to control the process of sleeping. Life works the same way. Genuine joy emerges when we stop analyzing why we are not joyful. Love blossoms when we stop dissecting every feeling. Creativity explodes when we stop trying to force it through techniques. Nietzsche saw that there is an animal wisdom within us, primitive, but not inferior, an intelligence that knows without needing to explain how it knows, that acts without needing to justify every action, that trusts life without needing to understand all its mechanisms. Recovering this wisdom does not mean abandoning knowledge. It means developing the ability to switch between the two states, knowing when to think and knowing when to simply be. knowing when analysis is useful and when it is an obstacle. It's like learning to play a powerful musical instrument. At first, every note has to be thought out, every chord has to be calculated. But true music only emerges when you stop thinking about the notes and simply let yourself be played by them. Life is the same instrument. We spend years learning the notes, studying the theories, mastering the techniques. But there comes a time when we need to stop thinking about the music and simply let ourselves be played by it. Perhaps the greatest wisdom is recognizing that there is a time to know and a time to forget, a time to accumulate and a time to trust, a time to think and a time to simply live. And maybe, just maybe, true intelligence lies not in carrying all the knowledge in the world on your shoulders, but in knowing when to put it down and walk freely toward what really matters. Sometimes the wisest answer is to stop looking for answers. When was the last time you made a decision without analyzing every possible consequence? Tell us in the comments. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You watch the videos. You reflect on each idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to go with this? If you want to take the next step and apply this knowledge to your life, the codes of the White Rabbit are ready for you. The link is in the pinned comment. Remember, success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit.